From the author of Spinsterella, The Strange and Unusual Romance and Spellbound, A Darker Shade of Black comes the legendary Magic Tilda. Pick up the conclusions of the Spinsterella trilogy in paperback and e-readers this Halloween. Over the last week, your President Donald Trump has been less than presidential. When you look at his behavior at the United Nations when he addressed that body, his exchanges with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, and his behavior regarding the NFL and the protests that many of the players are making, his behavior is not that of a president. His behavior is similar to that of a black male who's been raised in one of these single mother households. And when you look at Donald Trump's behavior from a critical and objective perspective, you will see that this man who's supposed to be our president of the United States is clearly not qualified to be the leader of the country that's supposed to be representing the free world. Now, when I look at your Donald Trump, again, I see a man who is behaving just like one of these Afro-American Negroes who was raised in one of these single mother households, because the way he addressed the United Nations was unprofessional, extremely unprofessional. Instead of him presenting a logical and constructive argument on how to deal with this North Korean crisis to a body of world leaders, your Donald Trump went on an emotional tirade where he ranted and raved in an emotional fashion. And that's something many guys who grew up in single mother households do, because they do not know how to navigate through their emotions, and they try to present opinions at people and instead of facts. And when it comes down to your Donald Trump, he wants people to agree with him, and he doesn't want to present a constructive argument to show you why you should agree with him. For him, he says he's going to destroy North Korea, and that's not a constructive solution that you present in a diplomatic arena. When you're in a place like the United Nations, you have to be a very calm person, you have to be a very logical person, and you have to present constructive arguments to present your case for why this world body should support you in taking action against a country like North Korea. Unfortunately, your Donald Trump decided he was going to express himself emotionally, and because he expressed himself emotionally, he wound up escalating the situation with North Korea and the United States. And when I look at his exchanges with this Kim Jong-un, again, it shows me the way one of these Afro-American Negroes from these single mother households behaves. Because all he does with this Kim Jong-un is go back and forth with this guy. And again, both of these men are behaving like guys who grew up in single mother households. And what's really sad is both of these men are supposed to be some of the wealthiest households and have wealthy fathers who are supposed to teach them the social and life skills on how to navigate social and diplomatic situations. But here we have a North Korean dictator who has been privileged from his father and his grandfather, and another wealthy man who's been privileged from his father, and both of these men are going back and forth with each other, just like these Afro-American Negroes go back and forth with each other on YouTube and Facebook when they disagree with each other. And what makes it really scary is that both of these men have control over these nuclear weapons, and they're going back and forth with each other, not behaving in the way a leader of a country should be. A leader of a country has to be able to remain calm, and they have to be able to navigate through their emotions, no matter how tense a situation is, because not only are they putting the lives of their people in the balance, but they're putting the lives of other people in other countries in the balance. And when I look at your Kim Jong-un and I look at your Donald Trump, I see two very spoiled, rotten, rich men who are in a penis measuring contest, going back and forth with each other, trying to bruise the other one's ego and trying to attack each other, showing the world how immature both men truly are, because both men are showing us that neither one has any critical thinking skills or any sort of problem solving skills, and both are in a ego match where they're ego wrestling with each other. And the scariest part is they're putting everybody's life on the line while they have this ego wrestling match where they go back and forth with each other, in the same way that many of these Afro-American Negroes go back and forth with each other on YouTube, on Facebook, and in the street, because that's the way they're behaving, just like two guys who were raised in single mother households who came up from the ghetto. I look at your Kim Jong-un, and he's coming from the position of this beta male, just like your Donald Trump is coming from the position of the beta male. Your Kim Jong-un is coming from the position of weakness, and your Donald Trump is coming from a position of weakness. And that position of weakness does not make either country look strong, because when you have to go volleying insults at each other, that shows that neither one of you are good communicators, and neither one of you understand the situation at hand regarding the tensions between these two countries. Any man who knows how to navigate through his emotions, knows how to think critically and problem solve, knows that you have to pull back and cool off. But these two guys do not know how to do this, and their behavior, again, it's just like these Afro-American Negroes. When they're in the street, they're going back and forth with each other, and then one of them decides, I'm going to go take my gun and shoot this guy because I disagree with him. And this is the big problem with your Donald Trump, as I see it. This is a guy who does not know how to agree to disagree, and he does not know how to communicate. Yes, your Donald Trump wrote the book back in the 80s called The Art of the Deal, but he doesn't know the art of how to shut up. Because when it comes down to many of these guys from these single mother households, these guys just don't know how to shut up, like your President Donald Trump. And because they keep talking, that's why situations get worse, and that's why many of these guys either wind up dead or in prison, because they do not know how to shut up. Shutting up is an art form. It is a skill that every man has to master. It's a skill I had to master at the age of 13 years old, and it's a skill that will keep you alive. Unfortunately, your Donald Trump and your Kim Jong-un have not learned how to master shutting up. They have not learned how to master silence, or how silence is an effective tool in communication, because sometimes the best response is no response. But the guy from the single mother household and guys who are privileged like your Donald Trump and your Kim Jong-un, they don't know how to do this. So they just keep talking until they talk themselves right into a very dangerous situation, because guys who talk too much, they wind up talking themselves into situations, escalating situations, because they do not know how to navigate their emotions. They do not know how to think critically. They do not know how to watch social cues. And this is what winds up jamming them up into dangerous situations where they wind up dead or in prison. But when I look at this situation, it could lead to millions being dead and the entire world completely changing. Now, I look at your Donald Trump regarding this whole NFL situation, and again, I see a man who acts like a guy who's been raised in a single mother household. And when it comes down to guys like your Donald Trump, they pop off their mouth and they don't think critically about what they say. And here he was talking about how many of these NFL players making this protest should be fired by these NFL owners. Now, with the NFL, they have been dealing with this whole Colin Kaepernick situation for the past couple of months, and they've done an exemplary job of been dealing with that situation with your Colin Kaepernick, who wanted to make his protest for police brutality. And they just said, okay, you want to have your protest, go ahead and have your protest. That's your First Amendment right. And they dealt with it. Unfortunately, your president wanted to come out here, and again, because he is an emotional person and does not understand logic, decided he was going to talk about this situation, saying that these players who are supporting Kaepernick should be fired. And all of that did was lead to a firestorm of controversy where all the players and all the owners got together and were united, and all these players from Major League Baseball were united as well. Now, when it comes down to the First Amendment, people have the right to freedom of speech and freedom of expression, and they have been given that right by our Constitution. And if these players want to do this and the owners have no problem with it, it should be left alone. Now, personally, I look at it this way and say that, yes, people should stand for this national anthem because it's a way of showing respect for the flag, respect for the country, and respect for all the soldiers who died for it. But if these men want to protest, that is their constitutional right as American citizens. Unfortunately, your Donald Trump doesn't understand the First Amendment and free speech and freedom of expression, because free speech isn't about the speech that you like to hear. It's about protecting the speech you don't want to hear, similar to what happened in Charlottesville regarding those Confederate statues. that also was under free speech. And when we look at free speech, it's about protecting speech you disagree with, because this is the big problem with your president, Donald Trump. He only wants people to agree with him, and that's how he parallels your Kim Jong-un. Because if you go to North Korea and you disagree with Kim Jong-un, he will kill you because you disagree with him. That's how dysfunctional his country is. And if we look at America, under Donald Trump, it's starting to head down that same road, because your Donald Trump is a man who cannot handle disagreements, and he can't handle differences of opinion. Now, when it comes down to these United States, differences of opinion are how this country grew and how this country changed over 200 years into a world superpower, because people disagreed and then they came up with a solution after they learned how to compromise with each other. That's why our country has grown, and that's why a country like North Korea is still stuck in a time loop where they're still stuck in the 50s with this whole communist collective plan, and their economy is stalled because they're still in a point where you have the leader and you cannot disagree with him. But in America, we should be able to disagree with our president, because that's a big part of our Constitution. We have the right to disagree with our president, to have differences of opinion. Unfortunately, your Donald Trump is a person who just can't stand handling differences of opinion, because when it comes down to differences of opinion, this guy thinks that his opinion is the only opinion. And the only place I have seen this dysfunctional behavior is in this Afro-American Negro community, and under the leadership of these single mother households. When it comes down to these single mother households, the guys in these single mother households believe that there is only one way to be black, one opinion that needs to be regarded, and that is that of the black woman in those single mother households and the black women in those communities. If you do not agree with those and the collective ideas of that black community, what happens is that's when you get attacked by the people in the black community. And when I look at Donald Trump's America, it's resembling a lot like North Korea, and it's resembling a lot like Black America, a fascist state where there is only one idea, one opinion, and one viewpoint. And that's not what our Constitution is all about. When I look at the way he's been behaving, it reminds me a lot of these Afro-American Negroes in this fascist state known as the black community. And when I look at the way he's been leading the country, it's a lot like the behaviors I've seen here in the black community, where there is only one opinion, one viewpoint, and he's going to get loud and emotional to insist that his way is the only way. And if you have that viewpoint, you really should not be the president of these United States, because if you're going to lead the country, you have to understand that you represent we the people, not just yourself. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. And if you want to try some of my SJS Direct publications, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.